Several people have now sent me information about this, and so I decided to look into it because it's going around that Wikileaks is actually compromised, and people are speculating if Julian Assange is dead, if he's been imprisoned somewhere, if he's been black-bagged. Now, I just want to clarify, put a little disclaimer, and to say that there are people who believe in Julian Assange. They believe that he is who he says he is. And then there are people who believe Julian Assange is controlled opposition, that he's always been controlled opposition, or at least he was controlled opposition during this election to take Hillary Clinton out. I'm not here to argue either position. I know that I personally believe Edward Snowden's a limited hangout, but that doesn't mean we haven't learned a lot from the information that he has put out there. That being said, there's a lot of really suspicious, strange stuff going on right now with WikiLeaks, and people are demanding proof of life on Assange, and they're not giving it. So it really does seem like something is going on. I was sent this tweet. It says, "Red alert, WikiLeaks controlled by CIA now. Personnel hiding, dead, or fear death. Assange said to be dead." And there's this post that was put up, and obviously not all, just because someone makes a post doesn't mean that they are who they say they are, or this is true, but it is compelling. It says, "I'm one of the 15 WikiLeaks personnel that were raided at the same time. Julian's internet was cut at the Ecuadorian embassy. I was issued a national security letter and a gag order. All my computer equipment was seized. We had several contingency communication plans in place, and I've been unable to contact Julian or any WikiLeaks personnel except for one through our alternative communication channels. Julian is missing, as are most of the WikiLeaks personnel that I had regular communications with. WikiLeaks personnel are not in control of the official Twitter account. The WikiLeaks IAMA on Reddit was not conducted by WikiLeaks personnel. The DDoS attack on the East Coast prevented the dead man switch from being activated. There's a contingency plan, but it requires physical travel. I am on it. There's been an incredible charade to keep up the appearance that Julian is fine. Several trusted people are obviously under duress, as I cannot imagine any reason why they would promote the charade. I want to stress that we are no longer in control of WikiLeaks. I advise whistleblowers to not submit leaks, since we're not in control of our infrastructure. The people in control of our infrastructure will use it to identify and prosecute whistleblowers." So that's a pretty explosive claim, and to really analyze that, you have to go back and look at the timeline of events and some of the reasons why people believe the claim. So We Are Change put up this list, because they're asking too, is Assange dead? Has WikiLeaks been compromised? They have a timeline here of all the events leading up to the time when people say whatever happened to Assange, whether he was black-bagged or imprisoned or killed or whatever, this is when they're saying it happened. So back in April, you have Assange's UN lawyer dying. They claim he jumped in front of a train. A lot of people said that's obviously very suspicious. In May, WikiLeaks chief counsel died of cancer. In July, Seth Rich, who was speculated was the possible WikiLeaks informant, he was murdered while walking home in Washington. That's still unsolved. October 7th, WikiLeaks started releasing the Podesta emails. The 15th, Joe Biden made vague threats to Russia, blaming Russia for WikiLeaks. Then you have Pamela Anderson, tied to Spirit Cooking, brought food to Assange at the embassy on the 15th. The next day, John Kerry showed up to personally pressure Ecuador to stop Assange from publishing documents about Hillary. That same day, WikiLeaks tweeted out a bunch of per-release keys, which looked to be a threat to John Kerry, to Ecuador, and to the UK. And his internet was then severed. And right around that same time, you had talk coming out of Homeland Security saying that our elections are a matter of national security and that they might have to take over and run the elections. On the 17th, a WikiLeaks volunteer tweeted, "You can't go in without an appointment. Julian's confirmed to be perfectly fine. Thanks for your support and checking." And then the next day, Fox News put up a report, which has apparently since been deleted, that Assange would be arrested within a matter of hours.
Who's trying to silence Julian Assange after leaking thousands of Clinton campaign emails? Someone cut off his internet access, and the word is he's going to be arrested soon, maybe in a matter of hours.
There were all kinds of reports coming out that SWAT had surrounded the Ecuadorian embassy. That same day, WikiLeaks released a full list of files on a server with properties changed to 1984. And the London airport, coincidentally, just happened to be evacuated due to chemical fumes. 3 days later, you had a massive DDoS attack on the US internet, and more heavily armed police spotted outside the Ecuadorian embassy. and you had more heavily armed police spotted outside of the Ecuadorian embassy. And what's interesting about when this attack was launched, WikiLeaks, from their official account, tweeted this: Mr. Assange is still alive and WikiLeaks is still publishing. We ask supporters to stop taking down the U.S. internet. You proved your point. Which seems really bizarre, and it's been pointed out. I thought it immediately when I read it, but other people were actually pointing it out. What? That implies today's DDoS attack was carried out by WikiLeaks supporters. Like, why would WikiLeaks throw their supporters under the bus and try to blame their own supporters for the DDoS attack, which this message here claims is what stopped the dead man switch from working? It doesn't make any sense that WikiLeaks would accuse its own supporters of the DDoS attack from their official account. It just seems really fishy. Since then, they just keep putting out statements about how the editor's safe, everything's fine, he's still in command, we're good. But people started demanding proof of life because it's just weird tweets that they started sending out, spelling the word algorithm wrong, stuff like that. It looks strange. And people are like, wait a minute, that, you get a feel for how someone talks and how they operate a thing after a while. And it just seems like all of a sudden the tweets coming out from WikiLeaks didn't really seem like they were from WikiLeaks anymore. And so they're like, well, thousands of people are demanding proof of life. That's not unreasonable. What would be your preference? And 51% of people said they wanted a video. 35% said appearance at window. Neither one of these things has happened since then. I mean, how hard would it be for him to go to the window? If he's in there, he could just walk up to the window, right? I mean, that's not a hard thing to do. If maybe he doesn't have video equipment or he doesn't have access to a phone or anything, which if that's true, then how is he still in command of anything anyway? But going to the window, that would be a pretty simple thing for him to do, and he still hasn't done it. And someone said, this is the CIA for sure now. Show us Julian. And WikiLeaks has actually gotten really pissed off about people asking for proof of life. This just came out this week. Please stop asking us for proof of life. We do not control Assange's physical environment or internet connection. Yeah, but Assange could go to the window. What does that have to do? Is he tied down to a chair in there? He can't go to the window even? It seems really suspect. On top of that, a couple weeks ago, on the same day, you had a bunch of YouTube channels, random YouTube channels, put up a video of Assange speaking at the embassy claiming it was current. And that got called out really fast because the video they were putting up was actually from 4 years ago. And it was really obvious that it was from 4 years ago because he looked younger, he looked totally different. But they were claiming it was a current video. And after everybody called it out, a lot of these videos, either like this one's put on private now, a lot of them have been taken down. Then you had this interview that was put up on RT's official channel, but it's not an RT interview, it's actually an interview courtesy of Dartmouth Films. And there's a couple problems with this interview. First, there's no proof just because they uploaded it on November 5th that it's that recent. This could have been filmed whenever in the last few months, and they're just now putting it up. But secondly, and I thought this was really strange, it's been pointed out by this guy here, he did a whole video on this, that this video has been edited. And he slows it way down and shows the cuts. And you can clearly see, I mean, look at his eye here. Okay, your eyeball doesn't do that. This is a cut. And there's a specific transition you can put in that's supposed to help take out pauses without making it look like the person has paused a lot. I mean, I guess they could just be using that transition, but it seems strange why they would when it's an hour-long interview anyways. I mean, what's the point of cutting out a few extra seconds of space? So there's definitely edits in this interview that look really strange. And a lot of people were pointing this out, and it brought this to mind for me as well. This report that we did several months ago about this new technology they have called face-to-face, which is real-time face capture and reenactment, where they can take control of someone's face and make it look like they're saying or doing anything in real time now. And actually, once this video started to go viral, Stanford University, who is one of the institutions working on this technology, they had our video taken down. So it was removed. They put a copyright violation on it, which doesn't really work for government-funded research. That's fair use. I should be able to report on it. This is the kind of technology they have. They can make it look like anyone, if they have video, they can make it look like anyone says anything they want them to. And so is that what's going on here with these bizarre cuts in this interview? Again, we don't even know when this interview was filmed anyway, so this isn't proof of anything. It's also been pointed out that with each update, WikiLeaks verifies files using a hash code that would change if any information had been altered. Files from November 7th failed to match a pre-released hash, which is part of what raised the concerns in the first place. I'll put links to this video. I'll put links to this video. You can go check all that stuff out. But the question remains, who's actually running WikiLeaks now? Because it doesn't really seem like it's WikiLeaks anymore. And now you have all these calls coming out that WikiLeaks is a terrorist organization. And you have a lot of people in this country who are hoping that Donald Trump is going to pardon Julian Assange or anything like that. And I can just tell you right now, that's not going to happen. This was published back in 2010 by KT McFarland. Yes, WikiLeaks is a terrorist organization and the time to act is now. And that's the same exact lady that Trump just got done naming his deputy national security advisor. So the same lady who 5 years ago, 6 years ago was talking about what a terrorist organization WikiLeaks is, that's the same lady who's now going to be the deputy national security advisor. If you think that things are going to get better for whistleblowers in this country under Donald Trump, you might as well stop waiting, because that's not going to happen. The question still remains, though. Who's running WikiLeaks now? Has it been compromised? What happened to Julian Assange?
Have to make a appearance where there's all sorts of security to do, like on the balcony.
Right.
That can't be done. That can't be done all the time. It could be done once.
So people will tell.
It can be done all the time.
People will tell.
We have to set precedents.
Okay.
Which are reliable and repeatable, and the best reliable and repeatable medium to make sure that some political figure
Is there a reason you're not making those appearances on the balcony at the Ecuadorian embassy anymore, or you've done so in the last?
Well, we set a precedent as far as it's concerned, essentially. Even done video interviews with me late last month. That's not enough to put the rumors to bed.
Is there a reason you're not making those appearances on the balcony at the Ecuadorian embassy anymore, or you haven't done so in the last?
Well, we set a precedent. This is a general problem for anyone from me to say Nasrallah, who is in a situation where they have powerful adversaries.
Snowden's a limited hangout, but that doesn't mean we haven't learned a lot from the information that he has put out there. That being said, there's a lot of really suspicious, strange stuff going on right now with WikiLeaks, and people are demanding proof of life on Assange, and they're not giving it. So it really does seem like something is going on. I was sent this tweet. It says, "Red alert." Several people have now sent me information about this, and so I decided to look into it because it's going around that WikiLeaks is actually compromised, and people are speculating if Julian Assange is dead, if he's been imprisoned somewhere, if he's been black-bagged. Now, I just want to clarify, I put a WikiLeaks controlled by CIA now personnel hiding, dead, or fear death. Assange said to be dead. And there's this post that was put up, and obviously not all, just because someone makes a post doesn't mean that they are who they say they are, or this is true, but it is compelling. It says, "I'm one of the 15 WikiLeaks personnel that were raided at the same time. Julian's internet was cut at the Ecuadorian embassy. I was issued a national security letter and a gag order. All my computer equipment was seized. We had several contingency communication plans in place, and I've been unable to contact Julian or any WikiLeaks personnel except for one through our alternative communication channels. Julian is missing, as are most of the WikiLeaks personnel that I had regular communications with. WikiLeaks personnel are not in control of the official Twitter account. The WikiLeaks IAMA, a little disclaimer, and to say that there are people who believe in Julian Assange. They believe that he is who he says he is. And then there are people who believe Julian Assange is controlled opposition, that he's always been controlled opposition, or at least he was controlled opposition during this election to take Hillary Clinton out. I'm not here to argue either position. I know that I personally believe Edward Snowden